106 years, guys. That is how long Smith Brothers Flooring has been operating in Calgary. Generations of experience in hardwood and engineered floors coming to you now in the Krista Hermanson Design Podcast. So if you're thinking about putting hardwood and engineered flooring into your home, you need to listen to this two-part series. Come along.
It is my great pleasure to introduce someone that I've had the good fortune to work with, our dear friend Paul Smith of Smith Brothers Flooring. And we're really delighted to be here and to learn from your expertise in the flooring business. You've been in it your entire life. And from what I understand, this is the third generation for Smith Brothers.
Third generation. My grandfather started in Calgary in 1918. In 59, my grandfather passed. My dad's brother came in. He was a little bit younger. Became Smith Brothers at that time.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
106 years.
106 years in Calgary, yeah.
That's fantastic. I can't imagine that there are many Calgary businesses that could even claim that.
There's a few businesses, but certainly no one in our trade.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. It's pretty cool.
If we could start maybe with just a general description of what hardwood flooring actually is.
Hardwood, of course, comes from the hardwood tree. There's many species. The main Canadian species, red oak, white oak, maple. Those are the main ones. There's a little bit of cherry here. Cherry and walnut are hardwoods, but they're on the softer scale of the hardwoods.
Right.
And then you have some more softwoods like the fir and the larch and the pine and woods like that. Some of them made into flooring, but they can't be considered hardwood, and they do mark up quite easy. You know, they're softer, so easier to dent, things like that.
Right. Yeah, there's actually a hardwood or a wood species hardness scale.
Yes.
It's the Janka scale, is
the
that?
Janka scale.
The Janka, okay.
Yes.
I'm Scandinavian, so I always want to do the soft J.
Yeah. But what the Janka test is they're just dropping a ball. How far does it impress into the wood? And so the North American species, if you move out of Canada into the US, hickory will tend to be the hardest species that's made into hardwood flooring on a volume scale. There's some other hardwoods, mesquite and some things like that, chestnut, but very little of that is made into the flooring that we see, okay? You got your hickory, your red and white oak, your maple. But remember that at maple, there's a silver maple from the West Coast that's a lot softer than the sugar or hard maple that we get here, especially in Quebec and Ontario. Yeah.
So even within a species, there are variances in terms of hardness, which really translates into durability.
Yes.
Or even not so much durability, but how much that's going to reflect how your family lives on that floor.
Definitely. We like to talk to a customer and find out what their lifestyle is like. Do they have pets? Do they have kids? Do they walk around with shoes on, high heels, that sort of thing? And then we can tailor the floor for their needs. Because if you have big dogs and 3 kids, maybe walnut's not your best choice, right? And you want to go with something harder. Also, that's something that might have some character, some grain in it that helps to camouflage any dents and dings that you might get in the floor. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that a grain pattern in a floor, which is a particular way the wood is sliced when it comes off the mill, will be more forgiving for a busy family. Say a quarter sawn or a
maple
rift cut
or a maple floor, right? That has virtually no grain. Very, very smooth. So any little dent, you're going to notice that.
That's right. You do see that when you look at a maple floor first thing. And so many builders were installing that as sort of a standard floor for quite a while.
Yeah, we've resanded a lot of those floors that were put in a while ago that they just got beat up and don't look great. And now they look like new again.
Yeah, well, and that's the beauty of using a solid hardwood, because that's wood all the way through the floor.
Yes.
How many sandings could you theoretically get out of a solid hardwood floor?
Well, everything remaining equal, you know, if the subfloor was level to begin with and you're a good sander, you should get 5 or 6 sandings out of it. If the floor has waves to it, your sander wants to take off the high spots. So every subsequent sanding, that's going to make that a little thinner in those spots. But normally, if it's a good subfloor, good sander, they're only taking off as much as you need to. And so, yeah, 4 to 6 pretty easily for sanding and refinishing. Yeah.
So would you say that a solid hardwood floor then really represents long-term value for clients?
Absolutely. The floor itself should last the life of the house, barring a fire or a flood, right? And so that floor, because the finish you put on is pretty darn good. You should get 15, 20, 30 years out of the finish. And then you can resand it, have it look like new, and then pass the house down to your kids and, keep going from there. They can last a long time. Yes. And it's the nice thing with actual hardwood, solid hardwood, is once the life is finished and you can't sand it anymore, you can take it off. If you do put it in a landfill, it's going to disintegrate, right?
Right.
Because it's a natural product.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, in at least one sense, it's environmentally friendly. And then it depends on where those trees have been sourced and
Exactly.
et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Your oaks, your maples, especially your oaks and maples, they're produced in Canada or close to Canada, the US. And so today we have more oak and maple trees than we did 100 years ago because of the replanting and the reforestation. So if anyone tells you that, oh no, you're cutting all these trees down to make flooring, well, yes, but we're planting more and we have more now than we did, which is cool.
Well, that's nice to get a piece of good news for a change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there are many different ways in which one can site finish a new hardwood floor or a newly sanded hardwood floor. Can you walk us through the most common and maybe a couple of unusual finishes?
Well, it boils down to either you're using an oil finish or you're using a urethane finish. In the urethane finish, there's oil-based urethanes, which was around forever, but they have high VOCs, and so they're limiting the amount that you can do with these finishes now. Then there's water-based that they came up with 25 years ago that have improved, and they're very, very low VOCs on that. They dry quicker, they cure quicker. There's a lot of advantages to the water-based finish, okay? But it's still a plastic finish, still a urethane finish that will wear out over time, okay? The other is the oil. And there's different types of oil out there made by different manufacturers, but the older ones still had a lot of VOCs. They were a solvent-based and oil-based, okay? But now there's the Rubio monocoat that we put in your place, okay? It's a single application oil finish. The nice thing about oil is you can keep it looking good indefinitely, okay? Because you're not walking on plastic. You're walking on the oil that's on the surface. So by using a cleaner that has a soap and oil in it, that will help to oil your floor as you go. Right. And then every number of years, you can re-oil that and bring it back to looking, if it has dried out and, looking very good. So that's the oil thing. People, when they find out, oh, I need to re-oil it, or I need to do this. No, I don't want that. I want the easiest I can, which is the urethane. Yeah. So that's what we do the most. There is a manufacturer of finish made by Bona out of Sweden, and they produce a product called Natural, which gives you the look of an oil floor, but it's a urethane floor. So,
and it would be more environmentally friendly.
Yes, because
we've all gone away from VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds.
We still do an oil base once in a while. Sometimes we're trying to match up with what they have existing, and it was an existing old oil floor, and so we have to use that again to get that look. In some situations where it just works better, but for 95% of the time we're using water, strictly water-based, yes. Yeah. Much more environmentally friendly, but also friendly for the guys that are using it, right?
Yes.
On site, on the
Absolutely.
site. So, you're just not bothered with it. With the oil base, you should be wearing a respirator.
Yeah,
it's important to take care of your people too, whenever you can.
It absolutely is, in every step.
And this is fumed. We could have gotten it fumed which is they put the wood in a room with ammonia, right? And it changes.
Oh, that's how it gets that.
And so that's why you get this sort of thing, and the big color changes, and you get these whites. So this is some sap or something that just didn't take that color. So really cool floor.
So one of the things that I've observed, and I'm sure you have as well, Paul, is how the desirability of certain looks in hardwood have changed over the time that we've been involved with flooring.
Yes.
We used to want floors that were quite perfect everywhere and very consistent in tone. They might show some wood grain, but they didn't show any of what we now call character.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about that evolution and also maybe where we're landing now in terms of looks?
Sure. 50, 60 years ago, it was all narrow boards, 1.5 inch red oak. And if you looked at our warehouse back then, it was all 1.5 inch red oak and 3/4 thick maple. And
that's thick.
Yeah, 33, 32 maple. And that was for gymnasiums. Okay. So we did gyms, and for all the residential was the 1.5 inch. And then in the 80s, hardwood started to become popular again, and the designers are what really brought the hardwood into fashion, because they found out that you could stain them different colors. Now you can use a hardwood floor that you might have already, have it sanded and stained into a color that would work well for that house that they're designing. So we owe a lot to the designers, actually. Well, thank you. But it was still all strip flooring. We did the odd wider plank, but it was mostly strip flooring. And then pre-finished manufacturing came in, where they take the wood, they mill it, sand it, and finish it right in the factory. Okay, so it comes here, all we have to do is install it, then we're done. And the pre-finishing makes it a little harder finish than what we can do on site, because they can control it in the factory and add what they need to it to make it that hard.
And it has the added benefit of being like literally finished before you install it. So all that dust or all that activity is removed from the site and takes place in the factory. Exactly.
Especially on a construction site, the quicker you're done, the better. If we're taking up the house for 5 or 6 days to do the sanding and finishing when no one can be in there, that's a long time, okay? And also you don't have to wait for the finish to dry or cure, which takes time too.
That's right.
As soon as you put a board in, you can walk on it, do whatever you want on it. So a lot of advantages to the pre-finish. Another advantage that is still there, I'll get back to the other in a bit, but if you have some damage to a board or a little flood from a fridge leaking or something like that, if it's a pre-finished floor, we can just change out those boards.
Right.
And it won't show, because usually we're using the same material they had. We'd leave a little extra material on site from the original install. If it's sanding and finishing involved now, you got to change the boards, they're water damaged. Then you have to sand it, and you probably can't match it 100%. So then you're sanding everything to fix this one small area. Right. So that is a big advantage to the pre-finished with a beveled edge, which most of them have. So getting back to what we were talking about before, so with pre-finished, Europe came out with wider planks, and they're a lot far ahead of the game than we are. So they engineer the boards so that the only hardwood you have is on the surface. Then you have different softwood structures underneath, which is nice, using more softwood, which is more of, and it grows faster. Right. Okay. And so if you can use softwood for the bottom and just the hardwood layer on the top, you get more yield out of the tree, more environmentally friendly that way. And so what they were able to do,
and this is the advent of engineering
part, yes. Yeah. What they were able to do is by doing this manufacturing process, it made the floor more dimensionally stable, because the wood's a natural product. It always wants to expand and contract with the seasons. Increase humidity, decrease in humidity, it's going to expand and contract. The wider the board, the more movement there is in that board. So if you get a board that's, say, this wide, inch and a half, and it shrinks 10%, you can barely notice board this wide shrinks 10%. Right? It doesn't do it that much, but...
And then you're getting a phone call from somebody.
And so the wider the board, the more movement there is in that board. So engineering helps to compensate for that fact by being more dimensionally stable. You've got these boards running different directions as opposed to one board going this way. Yeah. And so they're able to do these wider boards. So we started to bring them over to North America. So you started to see the advent of wider plank floors in a lot of pre-finished floors.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what year that would have been. It feels like it's been, what, maybe 15 years?
Oh yeah, 15, 20 years for sure.
Yeah. And now they've just gotten wider and wider and wider. And we see this, kind of like waistlines in fashion. They get wider and narrower. I don't know why I'm using all these fashion things today.
We were talking about the beveled edge with hardwood. Okay.
Thank you.
Whenever you put two pieces of wood together, there's always a little overwood and underwood. Always. Might be very minor.
Love that.
But there's always a little bit. And so an unfinished floor that we sand and finish on site, we're sanding it smooth. Okay. Pre-finish, you don't have that luxury of sanding it. So the manufacturers chamfer the edge or put a little bevel on it, put it together, it forms a V. Okay. Even though they do a very good job, precise job of milling, that V, which you'll see in everything. So some are smaller than others.
Yeah. So there's this little bit of an edge taken off each board.
Yeah. So you don't feel any higher or lower. And that's the reason for that. But also an advantage of that, especially in our climate, it helps to camouflage any movement that there is that might be in the board that you wouldn't see because it's a V group. You would see possibly if it was square edged. Okay, so it's kind of an advantage. It's not sold that way, but it's kind of an advantage in our climate because we're so dry in the wintertime. One more thing I just wanted to mention, whenever possible, I like to keep money and jobs in Canada, right? Because hardwood and wood is produced all around the world. Okay, so we have 3 or 4 Canadian mills that we really like, that I think do excellent. Mirage is one of them. One of my favorites. They're such a good producer out of Quebec.
And we've specified many of their floors over the years.
I just think they do a great job. And I think the quality is the best in the world. It can be a bit subjective, but we put in so many floors. Once we picked these guys up a number of years ago now, it's just a little bit above everybody else. So never had an issue with it. And so it's been very good. Vintage hardwood, they're all owned by the same company as Mirage. Excellent. 𝘮𝑉𝑒𝑟𝑒𝑚 out of Quebec again, they're excellent. So we have a lot of Canadian content that I really like to push. They don't have everything, and a lot of times they don't want to do that really rustic floor. Okay, really a lot of character. So their character floor will have some knots, a little bit of color variation, but they won't have it in the degree that some people want. So then we have to go elsewhere. And sometimes it's a price point, so we have to bring products in for that as well. But anything we do here, we stand behind. We have a lifetime workmanship warranty. Okay. We've been around 106 years, so I think we can back that up. And we deal with manufacturers and distributors that stand behind their products very well. So if it's in here, we'll stand behind it 100%.
Yeah. Well, and that's so important to know, because you can purchase flooring products anywhere, but that doesn't mean you're going to get the expertise and the service and the warranty that ideally you would always want. I also love that you brought purchasing Canadian into it. It reduces our environmental footprint. We're supporting local industry. We're not shipping things across the world and then shipping them back. Like some Canadian products actually are shipped way overseas for the actual fabrication, and then they're shipped all the way back. And the carbon footprint of that, given that these ships are coal powered, is just terrifying.
Yeah.
So we do try to, within our practice, shop Canadian as much as we can, not just in flooring, but across the
Across
whole
the board,
spectrum.
wherever you can. I think it's important.